Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about understanding what I've said about volume being the primary driver of hypertrophy versus tension or progressive overload. And when you say that, people get confused. They're like, Jason, you're saying weight on the bar doesn't matter. Well, no, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying quality reps matter. Quality reps matter. And in fact, we could even talk about the whole concept of effective reps. I think Greg Nuckols has given a pretty nuanced rebuttal to the concept of saying it's largely true, but things like bar speed matter. In other words, even if we're doing non effective reps, if we move the bar fast enough, there seems to be a hypertrophic response. Well, that's interesting because what do we mean by effective reps? Effective reps are generally considered to be, I believe it's Dr. Chris Beardsley who's broken a lot of that down, reps that are within 5 reps of failure. In other words, when you do a 10 rep max, right, you take a weight that is your all out 10 rep max, right? Only rep 6 and up starts to stimulate hypertrophy. And we've seen Dr. Mike and other people discuss this, that basically the closer you get to failure, the more hypertrophic benefit you get from every rep, right? In other words, rep 8 is probably going to cause a hair more muscle growth than rep 7 in terms of stimulation. Rep 9, probably even more. Now, they're not massively different. It's going to be a nuance different. And that's all theoretical. This is hypothetical. Right, this falls under the category of hypothesis, but it's well-reasoned hypothesis with a decent amount of data supporting it. But then again, as Greg pointed out, bar speed can matter too, even with weights that are not in the effective rep zone. So it's a complicated topic. Now, people will say, well, that means you have to continually progress. Well, in theory, but not necessarily. You can gain muscle by just continuing to add reps in theory on a weight. It becomes extremely impractical. But we come over to the other point of what's an effective rep. What's an effective rep? Well, if you gain muscle, your 10 rep max goes up. So if you keep doing sets of 10 with the same weight, you're losing effective reps. Right? When your 10 rep max turns into your 12 rep max, and you're doing sets of 8, you're getting a lot of growth. You get strong enough to do 15 reps with that old 10 rep max because you've gained enough muscle, and you're only doing 9 or 10 rep sets with it, you're probably not gaining any significant muscle. You're just going to sit there and stagnate. But we come over to the point, was it the progressive overload or was it the quality reps that mattered? And that is the point that I'm making. It's more nuanced than that. When I'm talking about this and I talk about the progressive overload as evidence of hypertrophy, because we've done enough effective reps at enough volume and enough frequency with enough rest and nutrition to facilitate muscle growth. Therefore, our 5 rep max, our 10 rep max, our 1 rep max all goes up. And then if we want to get the same quality of sets off of 5 reps or 10 reps or 12 reps, you're going to have to put more weight on the bar. But it's one of those cases of people say, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, in this case, it was the quality reps done with enough volume, because the volume determines how much gains you get. And in other words, if all you do is add weight to the bar, you're going to gain less muscle if you're doing really low volume. So when we say that volume is a primary driver of hypertrophy, it's not that going really heavy doesn't have quality reps that causes muscle growth. It's a question of how much muscle growth. And we look at most of the studies, like if they show per exercise, even if you're taking sets to pretty much failure or within 1 rep of failure. And by failure, we mean momentary failure of the weight, right? Where if you're just doing the reps nonstop the weight stops moving. Okay, that's failure. Taking a deep breath and doing a rest pause like you see me do a lot of times, that's not what we mean by failure. We mean just doing a continual set. And then the weight stops or form breaks down on a bigger movement. That's pretty much what we're talking about. Usually 3 sets causes more muscle growth than 1. 5 usually causes more than 3. We understand where we're going with this? People still gained muscle off of 1 really hard set. They didn't gain as much as 3 usually, and 5 usually causes a little more. Again, when looking at a single exercise. Now you throw that into a whole program and that gets a little more complicated. Again, understand that. But in that context, when the same weight was used and taking sets to pretty much failure, more sets usually causes more growth. Therefore, we look at that and say, well, volume is the primary driver of hypertrophy. And if you're gaining more muscle, that means you can put weight on the bar faster. Because we come back over to the other point. The size precedes strength. Progressive overload, again, based upon all the data I've seen, everything I've looked at, seems to be evidence of hypertrophy. And the amount of weight that you can add to the bar is evidence of how much hypertrophy. In other words, if you're gaining muscle twice as fast, you're going to get strong twice as fast. And I'm not telling people to lift light. So when you say something like that, people are like, oh my God, you're telling people not to lift heavy anymore. I'm telling you guys to max out. So that's one of the most annoying and absurd criticisms of when I say that. I max out every day. I have most of my clients hit 2 maxes every week. We lift heavy. So that's really a cop-out excuse when I say that. But that should also say something. I'm one of the guys who believes I'm on the extreme end. I think people don't hit 1 rep maxes often enough. I believe heavy lifting is critical, and not just for power lifters. I say that anybody who wants to get strong and jacked needs to be maxing out once they're proficient and experienced. Okay? So put that in context when I talk about volume. I am one of the most biased people there could possibly be towards tension. I want to find any data that says that hitting those 1 rep maxes might cause some muscle growth in a fiber that doesn't get hit with the volume work, and there is some data for that. Okay, I believe everyone should be maximally strong. So when I'm telling you, look, the data tends to suggest that the volume itself is the driver of hypertrophy, I'm one of the really biased people towards tension and heavy weights in my personal philosophy, in my own training style, in my coaching style. Okay? I am as biased as you could be towards heavy lifting. But the weight on the bar itself doesn't seem to be the driver. It's a secondary variable. It's a secondary variable because in order to get quality reps at a given number of rep range, you're going to have the appropriate weight on the bar. Okay? But it's not the adding the weight on the bar that makes you grow. So in other words, what I'm telling you is not, you didn't grow because you added 5 pounds to the bar. You added 5 pounds to the bar because you grew. And 3 sets with the same weight causes more growth than 1 set. Therefore, when we're looking at it in that context, it is total quality reps and work done in volume that seems to matter as far as how much muscle you gain. All right? Because in other words, adding more sets wouldn't continue to cause more growth like that from 1 to 3 to 5 if the volume wasn't the primary driver. Now, how could we summarize this up for the bros? What am I saying? I'm saying you guys probably need to train both harder and do more training. Okay? Relative to your ability to recover from it. Because that's the other big kicker. And we talk about that here a lot. Recovery. Recovery obviously matters. Recovery is critical. But we don't recover just because we did less work. Okay, we recover because we program intelligently. We recover because our lifestyle and our diet and our sleep and everything else facilitates recovery. Okay, so when I talk about recovery, I'm not saying, oh yeah, just train less. That's not what we mean. And that's how some people want to spin it. All right, guys. So in other words, you need to probably be training harder. You probably need to be training more, and you probably need to be resting more. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.